The gods told you.
Then I defy the gods.
Another Greek mythology adaptation. Guys, I hope this one's better than the ones in the past. I have mixed feelings. There's a line though that sticks out. You are the people from the sea. What if I told you that Christopher Nolan actually used that line to start an ideological debate, but he kind of dropped the ball on the ending of the movie because of it? He hid a deeper meaning in the Odyssey that I think most people missed. And honestly, it has a lot to say about Gen Z. Not gonna lie. So I sat with this line for about 3 days, and I was like, okay, I see where he was going, and I can't help but see the correlations between that movie and my culture, my people, America, but I don't think that he came to the right conclusion. He took a 2,800-year-old movie and he turned it against us, which I totally get, but I think it did a few things wrong. It spoke to a truth that my generation believes about themselves deeply, and that truth is destroying them. And you're probably wondering, what is that truth? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to spoil it. It's generational and collective guilt. So hear me when I say this. This is not a movie about how the CGI was just spectacular, which it was, or about Matt Damon and how he can carry an epic, which he can, or about the casting. Guys, I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But what we are here to talk about today is something that not a whole lot of people are talking about. It's the deeper meaning that the Odyssey has that a lot of people missed. That is why I'm here. That is something that we need to discuss. So the real question that Nolan is asking is this. First, what happens when you take all of these classic Greek gods and you strip them down to their bare bones and then modernize them? You got characters like Athena, who is basically just a figment of his imagination. She pops in and out whenever Odysseus is thinking about his past. We have Calypso, who is basically a therapist. Very, very fascinating. Did not like that character or that plot at all. And then you have Odysseus himself, who is a violent war hero, but then he becomes an agnostic who kind of just has to learn to let go of his past. Guys, it wasn't a satisfying ending in any way, shape, or form. However, it has a lot to say about our culture. And then you ask, what happens when somebody comes to terms with the fact that they are the people from the sea? What did Odysseus do? And what do we need to do as a result? That is the real discussion happening here. That is what we're going to talk about today. And it matters to you and to me because we are affected by it. We live in that. If you're an American, if you live in England, we are affected by this generational sin crisis all the time. Instead of moving past it, it's almost held over our heads. So that's why we're talking about it today. And I think we can solve this problem pretty easily. Christopher Nolan actually got the ball rolling on that. So let's get into it. But first, my name is Ethan Wood. You are watching Cut the Crap, where we dive into modern movies and we talk about the religious, cultural, and worldview questions that come out of them. We go deeper than the regular review channel. So if you like that kind of content, please hit that subscribe button. Like this video. The algorithm will reward you with more videos just like this. I personally despise the YouTube algorithm, so if you want to help me out in defeating my arch nemesis, that would be great. Algorithm, if you're watching this, I hate you. Moving on, a Catholic classicist named Jason Baxter, I was classically educated, big fan. He writes for America, a Jesuit review. Don't worry, I'm Christian. He wrote a review about Nolan's Odyssey, and he had a lot to say about it. He made the point that these characters are translated so close to modern sensibilities that they've almost lost something. They've lost the otherness, the uniqueness, the thing that really draws us to them. And look, Jason's not wrong about the facts, so let me give you a few examples to tell you what I mean. In Homer, Odysseus is called Polytropos, which is a man of many turns. He's complicated, he's arrogant, he taunts the Cyclops after leaving the cave. That's his character. That's who we're dealing with in Homer's Odyssey. In Nolan's, Matt Damon's Odysseus doesn't taunt the Cyclops. He shoots an arrow in his eye as like a final farewell and then runs away and is just happy to be alive. He gets past Circe, not with the god's charm, but with honesty and empathy. Guys, it's a very modern Odysseus. I don't know how I feel about that. And then there's Sinon. If you know him from classical literature, he's in the Odyssey. He is the man who convinced Troy to open up the gates to let the horse in. Virgil hates him. Dante put him in hell. All the stuff. In Nolan, Elliot Page plays him as an empathetic, self-sacrificing individual who doesn't even know that the horse is full of soldiers. Guys, Odysseus calls him the bravest warrior. That is a very strong contrast from Homer's Odyssey. Christopher, I don't know what you're doing here, man. Nolan took one of literature's most famous villains and he made him sympathetic. That is not carelessness, that is intentional. And I don't think that this is just him simply rewriting Odysseus, because we've seen this in Hollywood time and time again. He's taking evil and he's rewriting it. He's saying that good is not just purely good, that evil always has a good side to it. It's blurring the lines, it's confusing people, but that's a very modern thing to do. Nolan probably doesn't believe in heroes anymore. He doesn't believe that there is a good and an evil, it's all just people living their lives. And here we are with these two contrasting interpretations of the Odyssey, one that is classic, one that rewrites it for modern audiences. For good or for worse. And guys, Jason Baxter is completely right in saying that this is weird. Like, he is trying to rewrite these heroes. He's trying to rewrite this history, this book in general. I don't think we need to be okay with that. It's literally another movie director trying to rewrite good and evil. That is not okay. And again, I don't think that's a failure of adaptation. I think that's very intentional. I think the best place to continue this discussion is with Travis Scott as Femus, which you've probably seen the memes at this point. It's hilarious. Bards in the ancient world are the ones who carried stories that told people the history of nations. And in this movie, it's represented by a rap artist, which is not too far off in 2026. Rappers are probably the ones who tell the stories of our generation the best, or at least the most clearly. And it's fascinating that we needed somebody with 50 million Spotify listeners to tell us that story. We couldn't have just found somebody else to do that. But the symbolism goes crazy here. And again, Christopher Nolan is a genius director. I trust him so much to make good content. I don't think that he did this unintentionally. This isn't just a funny symbolic mistake. This is intentional. He did this for a reason. I think he is drawing the comparison between the Odyssey of that time versus the Odyssey of today. And the rap artist is now the one who carries the story of the nation. And what do rap artists say about our nation? Not great things. And this is where those 7 words come in again. You are the people from the sea. It's a constant building threat in the movie, if you remember. It's something that people are worried about, that people are coming from the sea to attack the nations. That is why Penelope feels the need to marry, because she needs to have an army, and she can only really do that with a male king. And in the movie, when Odysseus returns, but he doesn't tell Penelope that he is who he is yet, and they're talking in his palace house thing, she says, terrified to him, you are the people from the sea, because she realizes that he is the threat. And the Greek warriors, the war heroes, they have become the barbarians. So the title of this video, that is why I said what I said. Christopher Nolan is taking this line, he's taking this plot, and he's saying that we are the problem. The thing we were worried about, we are the problem. Odysseus was the problem. He was the people from the sea. Relate that to today? We. And guys, he's not being subtle about it at all. I can't help but see the parallels to America today. Just observing around me, there is a growing guilt about our nation's past that affects people, that people live with, they feel shame about, and they're not doing anything about it. And if you're Gen Z like me, then you know exactly what that feels like. Being told all the time that this minority is suppressed by me and I need to repent for that. Or this landmass used to be owned by this people group and we kicked them out, so now it's our fault and we have to feel guilt about that. But we're never talking about forgiveness. What could have made this movie better? A resolution surrounded by forgiveness and hope. Now here's why I'm saying that. First, Odysseus, when he returns, he doesn't come to terms with the fact that he, killed a lot of people in his past, did a lot of probably bad war crimes. He didn't come to terms with that or try to seek forgiveness. He just said, I'm just going to go into exile because that's what I deserve, and I'm going to run away with my wife, and I'm going to leave my son, who I have not mentored or seen in so long, and let him run my kingdom. Like a coward. But that is the theme. He says when they're sailing away, second, that generations will forget if the stories are not told, and that people are going to repeat the mistakes of the past. History always repeats itself, and without knowledge of what happened, nobody's going to change anything. And that's what you're just left with. I was like, Christopher Nolan, good job for like starting the argument and the conversation, but you didn't resolve it. You just kind of left us in this tension. And that was probably intentional, but here we are talking about it, so I guess he wins at the end of the day. But that's the political issue nobody's talking about. What does generational guilt do to a culture? Instead of coming together as a people group, we have decided to separate ourselves into little groups and pods of people. And that hasn't brought a nation together, that's only split us apart. Without forgiveness, there is no reconciliation with people. There is no working past the sins and guilt of the past. I totally understand people wanting to hold me accountable to the things that my ancestors did here in America. I understand it. People are hurt. But what if, instead of saying, it's all your fault and I'm going to hold this over your head for all of eternity, because that probably feels good, what if instead we came together and we said, this wasn't okay, but let's reconcile it and make sure that it doesn't happen again? What if we teach people that this was wrong, and instead of just making sure it never happens again, we also move on and make sure that this never repeats itself and that we can come together as a nation? That was the crisis I was left in at the end of this movie. But I think what would have helped was a Christian worldview, which is something that Nolan lacks. A Christian would say, I forgive you. I know that Jesus has forgiven me, and just as he has forgiven me, I am going to forgive you. Which is funny, because in Homer's Odyssey, Odysseus ends up being some sort of a Christ-like hero at the end. He comes in, he kills all the suitors that are in his house, talk about God's house and how it's overrun by sin and depravity. He takes all that out, he wipes it clean, he is almost resurrected from the dead to a degree, and he restores his kingdom. That is a way more Christ-like figure than what Nolan's is, and that just reflects where culture is today. That is just the fact and the matter of it. Very, very fascinating stuff, and here's what we're left with. An Odysseus who runs away, who is a coward, and generational guilt that is still not dealt with. So instead of just accepting Nolan's ending, let's come together, be unified, instead of just sitting in that shame and guilt. I feel like that's a better way to move on, and that path is full of way more forgiveness and hope. That is the goal. That is always what I want to see out of Hollywood. Christopher Nolan maybe a little bit disappointed me, but I loved the discussion that it presented. And honestly, that was worth it in my mind. So guys, as you probably know, I'm a small YouTuber still trying to make something out of this channel. I'm hoping to grow something big out of this. If you like this content, please subscribe. I really do appreciate it. That means a lot to me. Also, comment down below. I want to hear what you thought about this discussion. Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think that I had a valid point? I would love for you guys to continue down there. That is something I actually love to see out of you guys. It's my favorite part of YouTubing, is being able to interact with you. So please, let me know your thoughts down below. Like this video, all the things. My name is Ethan Wood. This has been Cut the Crap. I will see you guys next time.